Jack Harmon stood frozen on the hillside, watching as his hometown of Boise vanished in a flash of blue light. One moment the city skyline was there, the next, nothing but smoke and fire. The alien ships hung in the sky like massive metal insects, their weapons still glowing. "No," he whispered, dropping the supply pack he'd been carrying. His legs gave out and he fell to his knees. His parents, his sister, his neighbors, gone in seconds. The ground shook as another blast hit somewhere to the east. Jack scrambled behind a boulder as a shadow passed overhead. A Vexari scout ship, its hull gleaming with strange symbols. He'd only seen them in news reports before today. The air crackled with energy. Jack felt his skin tingle before a pulse of light surrounded him, his muscles locked up. He couldn't move, couldn't scream as his body was lifted from the ground. He woke in a cell with metal walls that seemed to pulse with faint light. 3 other humans sat or stood in the cramped space. A woman with short black hair paced the perimeter. A muscular man with a scar across his jaw sat motionless in the corner. A younger guy with glasses kept tapping at the wall looking for weaknesses. "Welcome back," the woman said. "I'm Nora Reeves, former Army intelligence." "Jack Harmon," he managed, his throat dry. "What's happening?" The muscular man spoke without looking up. "We're being drafted. I'm Sam Blackwood, Special Forces, or I was." The younger man stopped his tapping. "Kyle Martinez. I was an engineer before these bugs showed up. They're calling themselves the Vexari Dominion." Jack tried to stand, but his legs wobbled. "Drafted? They just destroyed my city." "They don't want our planet," Nora explained. "They want soldiers. Apparently humans are what they call Deathworlders. We evolved on a planet that should have killed us. Makes us tough." A section of wall slid open. 2 aliens entered. Tall, thin creatures with 4 arms and skin like polished stone. They wore armor that seemed to flow around their bodies. "Processing begins," one announced in strangely perfect English. "You will serve the Dominion against the Shroud Collective." Guards pushed them into a larger chamber filled with rows of humans standing at attention. Jack's blood went cold when he spotted a familiar face. "Eric?" he called out. Eric Donovan, his friend since childhood, stood rigidly in line. His eyes were vacant and a small metal device was attached to his temple. "Neural inhibitors," Kyle whispered. "Mind control." The aliens forced them into chairs. Cold metal pressed against Jack's temple as a device was attached. Pain shot through his skull as the inhibitor activated. "You will obey," a voice said inside his mind. "You will fight for the Dominion." Jack felt his will slipping away. His body stood without his permission. He marched in line with the others toward a massive door. They entered a simulation chamber where holographic enemies appeared. Jack's body moved automatically, following commands he didn't choose to obey. During the battle simulation, something strange happened. As Jack dove for cover, his inhibitor sparked. For a brief moment, clarity returned. He could think freely again. He glanced at the Vexari commanders watching from above. They were studying the humans like lab rats, making notes on their performance. The inhibitor reactivated, pulling him back into obedience. But in that brief moment of freedom, Jack had realized something important. The aliens were tracking their movements, their reaction times, their fighting styles, but they had missed something crucial. They had no idea what humans were truly capable of when pushed to their limits. Jack worked in secret with Kyle whenever the neural inhibitors cycled into rest mode. They had discovered the devices needed to power down for 8 minutes every 24 hours to prevent brain damage. "Hold still," Kyle whispered, using a tiny tool he'd fashioned from scrap metal. He made a minor adjustment to Jack's inhibitor. This should give you about 10% more control without them noticing. Jack felt the difference immediately. A small part of his mind was his own again. Not enough to disobey direct orders, but enough to think independently. "We need to tell the others," Jack said, already working on Nora and Sam, "but we have to be careful." Alarms blared through the Dominion ship. Red lights flashed in the barracks. The Vexari commander's voice boomed over the speakers. "Human combat units deploy immediately. Shroud forces detected on mining planet Krell 9. Jack's body moved automatically toward the dropship bay. Hundreds of human soldiers marched in perfect unison, faces blank. He spotted Eric several rows ahead. The dropships were cramped metal containers with no windows. Jack was packed in with 20 other humans. Sam and Nora were there too, their eyes showing a hint of awareness thanks to Kyle's modifications. "Remember," a Vexari officer said through the ship's speakers, "you are expendable assets. Your purpose is to draw enemy fire and identify defensive positions." The ship shuddered violently as it entered the atmosphere. When the doors opened, hell waited outside. The sky burned orange. The air smelled of sulfur and metal. Massive mining equipment lay destroyed across a barren landscape. And in the distance, shadowy figures moved with impossible speed. "The Shroud," someone whispered. Jack's squad advanced across the rocky terrain. Neural commands forced them forward even as plasma fire erupted around them. 3 humans fell immediately, their bodies smoking. Jack dove behind a crashed mining vehicle. His partial freedom let him choose how to follow orders, if not whether to follow them. Nora landed beside him. "They're using us as bait," she hissed. A shroud fighter appeared suddenly above them, a writhing mass of darkness with glowing points like stars. It didn't attack immediately. Instead, it projected an image into the air. Jack saw a massive structure buried beneath the planet's surface, some kind of ancient weapon. Not weapon. The shroud communicated somehow directly into his mind. Prison key. The connection broke as Vexari commanders ordered an advance. Jack watched in horror as human soldiers marched directly into shroud fire, being cut down by the dozens. From his position, he could see the Vexari officers safely behind the lines, studying the battle patterns. They didn't care how many humans died. During the chaos, Eric appeared beside Jack, pulling him behind a larger piece of cover. "Jack," Eric said, his eyes clear and focused. "I've been faking compliance for months." "How?" Jack asked, stunned. "The inhibitors don't work as well on some of us. I've gathered intel." Eric pulled out a small data device. "The Dominion isn't just taking Earth. They found other human colonies. They're harvesting all of us." A massive explosion rocked the battlefield. Their squad was ordered to advance toward a shroud structure. "It's a suicide mission," Nora said, joining them. They had no choice but to move forward. The neural inhibitors forced their compliance. As they approached the structure, the ground beneath them collapsed. Jack fell into darkness, landing hard on an ancient metal floor. The walls around him were covered in strange symbols that somehow looked familiar. As his squad regrouped in the darkness, light suddenly flooded the chamber. Before them stood a massive holographic display showing star systems, planets, and trade routes. At the center was Earth, marked with a symbol Jack recognized instantly. It was on his grandfather's old military uniform. "This is impossible," Sam whispered beside him. The display showed humans commanding vast fleets, building massive structures, and ruling this entire sector of space. According to the date stamp, it was from 5,000 years ago. The battle raged above them as Jack and his team examined the ancient human command center. Kyle ran his fingers over a control panel, and it lit up at his touch. "This technology responds to our DNA," Kyle said, eyes wide. "The neural inhibitors are based on this tech. That's why they have weaknesses. They were designed for us, not by the Vexari." A loud explosion shook dust from the ceiling. The Vexari would find them soon. "We need to move," Jack said. He felt the neural inhibitor trying to force him back to the battle, but Kyle's modifications gave him just enough freedom to resist. Nora pointed to a side passage. "There, emergency exit." They ran through narrow corridors lined with dormant technology. Behind them, Vexari voices shouted commands. Plasma fire scorched the walls. "Here," Eric said, stopping at what looked like a small transport bay. A sleek ship sat waiting, untouched for thousands of years. "Can we fly it?" Sam asked. Kyle placed his hand on a panel. The ship hummed to life. "I think it wants us to." They piled inside as Vexari troops rounded the corner. The ship's doors sealed automatically. Controls lit up, responding to Kyle's frantic inputs. "I don't know what I'm doing," he admitted as the ship lifted off. The ancient vessel shot forward, blasting through the underground hangar doors and into the chaos of the battlefield. Vexari ships immediately gave chase. "We need to get off planet," Jack said. "The inhibitors have limited range." As they broke atmosphere, the constant pressure of the neural control began to fade. Jack felt his mind clearing fully for the first time since his capture. "I know somewhere we can go," Eric said, taking over the controls. "There's a resistance cell hiding in the asteroid belt of the Proxima system." The ship moved with impossible speed, outrunning their pursuers. Hours later, they approached a cluster of asteroids. A hidden base was carved into the largest one. Inside the base, they found hundreds of humans. Some were escaped conscripts like them. Others were colonists who had fled before the Vexari arrived. A woman named Diane Chen approached them. She had the hard look of someone who had been fighting too long. "More escapees," she said. "How did you break the neural control?" Jack explained about Kyle's modifications and the ancient human technology they'd discovered. "We've suspected something like this," Diane said. "Humans can survive conditions that would kill most aliens. We adapt faster. We endure more pain. We heal from injuries that would be fatal to them." "They fear us," Sam said. "With good reason." Diane led them to a command center. "We've been hitting their supply lines, but we're too few for open warfare. They have thousands of controlled humans fighting for them." Jack looked at the tactical display showing Vexari positions across multiple star systems. An idea formed in his mind. "What if we could free them all at once?" he asked. "The neural inhibitors work on a specific frequency. If we could broadcast a disruption signal..." "We'd need access to their main communication hub," Diane said. "It's heavily guarded." "But worth the risk," Jack insisted. "With an army of freed humans, we could actually fight back." They planned through the night. The mission was simple but dangerous. Infiltrate the Vexari communication hub on Proxima Station and broadcast the disruption signal. Jack, Nora, Sam, and Kyle volunteered for the mission. They would pose as still-controlled conscripts being transferred to the station. The plan worked at first. They made it through 3 security checkpoints before an alarm sounded. "They know," Nora warned as guards approached. They fought their way to the broadcast center, Sam taking point with a stolen Vexari weapon. They were almost there when a squad of elite guards cut them off. In the firefight that followed, Sam took a direct hit, protecting Jack. They managed to secure the room, but Sam was badly wounded. "Get to the controls," Sam gasped as Nora tried to stop his bleeding. Kyle worked frantically at the alien console while Jack and Eric held the door. The sound of reinforcements grew louder. "I've got it," Kyle shouted. "Broadcasting now." The signal went out across all Vexari networks. On screens around them, they watched as human soldiers everywhere suddenly stopped, looked around in confusion, then turned on their Vexari commanders. But as they celebrated, a new alert flashed on the screens. The Vexari were accelerating some kind of project called vessel integration, and they had just 10 hours before it launched. "What is that?" Jack asked. Sam looked up, blood on his lips. "It's why they really took us, not as soldiers, as bodies." Sam's breathing grew shallow as Jack and Nora tried to stop the bleeding. The wound was too severe. "We need to get him medical help," Jack said. "No time," Sam whispered. "You need to stop them. The research facility on Vega Prime. That's where they're doing the experiments." "What experiments?" Nora asked. "They're not just using us as soldiers. They're studying how we adapt to their tech. Humans can control alien systems better than the aliens themselves." Sam gripped Jack's arm with surprising strength. "Remember the rules, Jack. Remember what they never understood about us." His eyes closed. His hand fell away. Jack stood, his face hard with grief and determination. "We're going to Vega Prime." They fought their way back to their ship. The station was in chaos as freed human conscripts battled Vexari guards. The rebellion had begun. The journey to Vega Prime took 3 hours. They used the time to gather weapons and prepare. Eric established communication with resistance cells that were forming across Dominion space. "The signal worked," Eric reported. "Thousands of humans are free. They're fighting back everywhere." The research facility orbited Vega Prime like a massive silver spider. As they approached, they saw signs of battle. Some humans had already begun attacking the facility. "We need a way in that they won't expect," Jack said. Kyle pointed to a maintenance hatch on the underside. Service entrance, minimal security. They docked undetected and entered the facility through the maintenance tunnels. The corridors were eerily quiet. "Where is everyone?" Nora whispered. They found out when they reached the central laboratory. Through a viewing window, they saw rows of humans strapped to tables. Vexari scientists moved between them, attaching devices to their heads. "They're preparing them," Kyle said, checking a nearby computer terminal. "This is the consciousness transfer device. The Vexari leaders plan to transfer their minds into human bodies." "Why?" Eric asked. "Because we're better," Jack realized. Sam was right. We adapt faster, learn quicker. In our bodies they could use technology in ways they never could before. A scream came from inside the lab. A human test subject convulsed as a Vexari consciousness was forced into his mind. "We need to destroy this place," Nora said. "First we get those people out," Jack insisted. They split up. Kyle and Eric went to disable the facility's defenses, while Jack and Nora entered the lab. The scientists were so focused on their work they didn't notice until Jack started freeing the first test subject. Alarms blared. Guards rushed in. Jack and Nora fought back to back, using the Vexari weapons with a skill that surprised even the aliens. More freed humans joined the fight as they were released. "The main transfer device is in the next section," a rescued scientist told them. "They've been working on it for years. It's almost ready for mass deployment." Jack and Nora fought their way to the central chamber. Inside was a massive machine, pulsing with energy. And standing before it was a Vexari unlike any they'd seen before. Taller, with 6 arms instead of 4, wearing ornate armor. "The Supreme Commander," Nora whispered. The commander turned. "Humans, always fighting what you don't understand. Did you never wonder why your species feels so at home among the stars? Why you adapt so quickly to alien worlds?" "We're survivors," Jack said, weapon raised. "You are our creation," the commander replied. "Long ago, humans ruled this sector. Your empire spanned 1,000 worlds. We were one of the species you conquered." Jack faltered. "That's not possible." "We rose up. We defeated you. We erased your history and scattered your survivors across primitive worlds to devolve. But we kept your genetic template." The commander gestured to the machine. "And now we will take back what you stole from us. Your bodies, your adaptability, your place among the stars." The machine hummed louder. Energy crackled around it. "It's powering up," Nora warned. Jack remembered Sam's last words. "Remember the rules." Suddenly he understood. The Vexari fought by rules, by patterns. Humans didn't. "Nora," Jack said quietly, "remember basic training, Rule 1 of asymmetric warfare?" Nora smiled grimly. "When outgunned, change the battlefield." Jack fired, not at the commander but at the coolant pipes running along the ceiling above the machine. The coolant pipes burst open. Freezing liquid sprayed across the chamber, hitting the transfer device and causing its systems to spark and fail. The Supreme Commander roared in anger. "You dare," the commander hissed, drawing a weapon that hummed with deadly energy. Jack dove behind a console as the commander fired. The blast melted through metal where he had stood a second before. "We need to get to the central core," Nora shouted, firing back at the commander. "Overload it." More Vexari troops poured into the chamber. Jack and Nora were pinned down, outgunned and outnumbered. Then the wall behind the Vexari exploded inward. Through the smoke came Kyle and Eric leading a group of freed human test subjects. The battle erupted into chaos. "Get to the core," Eric yelled to Jack. "We'll hold them off." Jack fought his way across the chamber using moves no Vexari could predict. He slid under enemy fire, used fallen enemies as shields, and improvised weapons from broken equipment. The Vexari had never seen combat like this. No patterns, no rules, just raw survival instinct. The Supreme Commander tracked Jack's movement, firing blast after blast. "Your species always breaks the rules," the commander snarled. "It is why you had to be destroyed." Jack reached the core access panel. Kyle had taught him what to look for. He began rerouting power, causing the core to overload. "You cannot stop what is coming," the commander said. approaching Jack with weapon raised. "Even if you destroy this facility, we have others. We will reclaim our rightful place." "Our rightful place," Jack corrected, standing to face the commander. "Humans built this technology. We'll decide who uses it." The commander fired. Jack ducked and charged forward, tackling the much larger alien. They crashed into a control panel. Jack was outmatched in strength, but he fought dirty, targeting joints, using leverage, fighting like a human from a death world. Across the room, Nora had reached a communication terminal. "Broadcasting on all frequencies," she called out, "sending the truth to every system." The commander threw Jack across the room. He hit the wall hard, feeling ribs crack. The alien approached for the kill. Suddenly, a shadow fell across the room. Through the facility's viewport, Jack saw ships appearing. Ships unlike any Vexari design. They moved like living shadows against the stars. "The Shroud," Eric said in awe. The commander turned in shock. "Impossible. They never ally with other species." "They do now," Jack said, struggling to his feet. "Because we broke your rules." The core began to pulse with dangerous energy. Warning alarms blared throughout the facility. "This place is going to explode," Kyle shouted. "We need to go." Jack faced the commander one last time. "You forgot something important about humans. We don't just adapt to survive, we work together, we form alliances, we forgive enemies when we need to." The humans retreated toward their ship as Shroud forces engaged the Vexari fleet outside. The commander watched in disbelief as his carefully planned operation fell apart. The facility exploded behind them as their ship joined the Shroud fleet. On the communication channels, reports came in from across Dominion space. Human resistance forces were coordinating with Shroud allies, striking at Vexari strongholds. Days later, Jack stood on the bridge of a former Vexari command ship, now controlled by humans. Representatives from the Shroud materialized beside him. Their true forms still mysterious, but their intentions now clear. "The Dominion is retreating from human space," Nora reported. "The consciousness transfer technology has been destroyed." "And the truth?" Jack asked. "Spreading everywhere," Kyle said. "Every species in the galaxy now knows that humans once ruled this sector, that we built the technology the Vexari claimed as their own." Jack looked out at the stars. Thousands of freed humans were returning to Earth while others chose to remain among the stars, reclaiming their heritage. "The Vexari Supreme Commander was right about one thing," Jack said. "Humans break the rules. We don't fight the way they expect. We don't think the way they predict." Eric joined him at the viewport. "What now?" Jack watched as ships from a dozen species gathered around their position, former enemies now seeking alliance with the humans who had broken the Dominion. "Now we rebuild," Jack said. "Not an empire like before, something better, something that uses our strength not to conquer, but to protect." The stars stretched out before them, full of possibilities that no one, not even the Vexari, had imagined possible.